There's a moment in adulthood that hits harder than heartbreak, deeper than loneliness, more quietly devastating than any dramatic loss. It's the moment you realize you're living a life that doesn't feel like your own. A life built on expectations instead of desires, survival instead of purpose, obedience instead of authenticity. A life that looks fine on paper, but feels wrong in your bones. Part 26 is about that moment. The moment you wake up and wonder, how did I end up here? It doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in slowly, silently, almost politely, in small ways, in small whispers, in small discomforts that you ignore because you're too busy or too old to start over or should be grateful. But the feeling grows. It grows every time you say yes when your entire body says no. It grows every time you please instead of express. It grows every time you silence your needs and play the role expected of you. It grows every time you choose safety over truth, familiarity over growth, comfort over authenticity. Part 26 begins with a painful truth. You didn't choose your life. You inherited it. You inherited your parents' fears, your culture's expectations, your family's beliefs, your society's version of success, your childhood lessons about who you're supposed to be. You shaped yourself around other people's rules, other people's comfort, other people's approval. You dimmed your desires to fit into the version of yourself that caused the least disruption. You became what made sense, not what made you whole. And now, years later, you feel the consequences, the emptiness, the confusion, the internal misalignment, the exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix, the ache of a life unlived. Part 26 goes deeper. You don't feel like yourself because you never had the chance to discover who yourself actually is. You spent your childhood trying to survive emotionally. You spent your teenage years trying to belong. You spent your adulthood trying not to disappoint anyone. And somewhere along the way, your identity dissolved into responsibility. Your personality dissolved into performance. Your dreams dissolved into practicality. You became functional, but not fulfilled. Part 26 reveals an uncomfortable truth. You feel disconnected from your life because your life was built from fear, not freedom. Fear of not being enough, fear of being too much, fear of failing, fear of disappointing others, fear of being abandoned, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being seen too clearly. Most people don't build their lives from desire, they build them from fear. Fear makes the decisions. Fear sets the standards. Fear chooses the relationships, the goals, the paths. So it's no surprise your life doesn't feel like yours. It never belonged to your authentic self. Part 26 continues. You lose yourself the moment you start performing for acceptance. You lose yourself when you adapt to everyone's needs but your own. You lose yourself when you become easy to love by becoming easy to use. You lose yourself when you chase validation instead of alignment. You lose yourself when you confuse peace with pleasing. Your childhood may have taught you that your true self was too emotional, too intense, too sensitive, too opinionated, too quiet, too weird, too ambitious, too lazy, too much or not enough. So you modified yourself into a more appropriate version, a socially acceptable avatar. But avatars don't feel alive, they just function. Part 26 goes deeper still. You don't feel like you're living your life because trauma stole your ability to make decisions from desire. Trauma teaches you to choose safety over authenticity. So you choose the job that doesn't excite you, the relationship that doesn't nourish you, the habits that don't grow you, the routine that doesn't fulfill you, the boundaries that don't protect you, the identity that doesn't reflect you. You built your life while disconnected from your true self, so the life you built can't possibly feel right. Part 26 reveals another truth people avoid. Your life feels wrong because you outgrew the version of yourself who created it. You're no longer the same person who chose your career. You're no longer the same person who entered your relationships. You're no longer the same person who created your habits. You're no longer the same person who made choices from survival. But your life hasn't updated to match who you're becoming. It's still attached to who you were. This creates an identity mismatch, an internal friction, a feeling of being off for no explainable reason. Part 26 explains, you feel detached from your life because you've outgrown it. You've outgrown the roles. You've outgrown the expectations. You've outgrown the smallness. You've outgrown the version of you that tolerated what you can no longer endure. But you're scared to step into the new one. Not because you don't want it, but because you don't know who you'll become once you stop performing. Identity death is terrifying. But what's even more terrifying is realizing you've been dead inside for years while pretending to live. Part 26 exposes the core wound. You can't feel alive in a life built on self-abandonment. When you repeatedly betray yourself, your needs, your values, your desires, your soul goes numb, your emotions flatten, your motivation disappears, your joy evaporates, your passions fade, your energy collapses. Your mind keeps functioning, but your spirit stops showing up. You don't feel human anymore. You feel like a placeholder in your own existence. Part 26 ends with a truth most people avoid their entire lives. Your life will never feel like yours until you do. Not your job, not your relationship, not your achievements, not your success, not your friends, not your routines. You. Your life starts to feel like yours the moment you stop betraying yourself. The moment you stop performing and start expressing. The moment you stop pleasing and start choosing. The moment you stop shrinking and start expanding. The moment you stop numbing and start feeling. The moment you stop running from yourself and start returning to yourself. Because the real you is not gone, just buried. Beneath obligation, expectation, exhaustion, fear, and years of survival. But buried things are not dead. They're waiting. And the moment you choose yourself, truly, fully, unapologetically, your life will finally begin to feel like it belongs to you.